Tonight is 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 12th, 2022. I'd like to call the regular meeting of ISD 191 Board of Education to order. I welcome those in our audience here with us tonight, as well as those watching online. And Director Werb, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Director Miller.
Second.
Second by Director Alt. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we'll move on to the information portion of our meeting. We will be getting a report about strategic roadmap, draft strategic directions, and dashboard update. We have Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent, and Aaron Tinklenberg, Communications Director.
Thank you, Chair Chester and directors of the board. As you know, the board adopted a new vision and core values in May 2021 as the first part of a redevelopment of the district strategic roadmap. To complete the roadmap, the district needs new strategic directions. So tonight we are sharing a draft strategic directions and an update about the dashboard. A few comments about the dashboard. There will be some elements of the dashboard, including metrics of the Achievement and Integration Plan and the World's Best Workforce Plan. Our Achievement and Integration budget was finally approved by MDE late last week. And to highlight a few of those metrics so you are familiar with some of those metrics that may end up in the final dashboard. But we will follow our plans to respond and work to achieve our goals for each of these metrics. So some of those metrics include all students ready for kindergarten, all students in grade 3 achieving grade level literacy, reducing the disparity in the 4-year graduation rates between white students and students of color, increase the families of color, indicating they feel welcome and safe in their child's school. And also, another example is increase the percentage of teachers responding they have the skills and knowledge to deliver culturally responsive lessons. And so with that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Communications, Aaron Tinklenberg, who will go through our presentation for tonight.
All right, thank you, Dr. Battle, Chair Chester, and members of the board. As Dr. Battle said, we're just giving an update on where we're at with the strategic directions, as well as sharing with you some draft strategic directions as they sit right now. So here's our overview of what we'll be talking about tonight. So as Dr. Battle mentioned, and as I'm sure you all remember, we last year went through basically a year-long process to adopt a new vision and new core values for the school district. And that vision is up here on the screen now. I kind of just want to, this is just a reminder of that process, and one of the things that I want to mention specifically is that we were really intentional about engaging our community in that process so that our vision and our core values would really be a reflection of us as a school district, something that maybe wasn't done as completely in previous versions of the strategic roadmap, and I think the result is a better reflection of who we are as a district, and hopefully will result in better strategic directions and better work plans for the district as well. Here are those core values: caring community, cultural proficiency, future readiness, inclusive partnership, and student agency. Again, I'm not going to go through all of it completely, but each of these does have a descriptor, you'll remember, that says a little bit about that value and how it applies to us perfectly, or more exactly. So one example of that under student agency, it would read, our students will make choices that personalize their learning journey, proactively building a day-to-day experience that leads them toward their passion and purpose. So it's not just that we'll listen to student voices, it's that student voices will be, our students will be actively creating their own learning pathways. And community members and staff members, anybody else can look at that value and vision, or those values and the vision on our website. So the next part of this process, as Dr. Battle mentioned, is the strategic direction development. This is just a review of the timeline that we've been working through. Back in August is when this started. We had a barriers and directions workshop. Part of that work at the barriers workshop, again, this was a group of about 25 or so staff members representing different roles and responsibilities in the district. A relatively diverse group of staff members spent about half that day or half that time identifying what the barriers were preventing us from reaching our vision, and then starting to work on developing directions to address those barriers. And that's the way that we can have strategic directions. They're not just good things to do, they're things that we need to do to overcome those barriers or to get past those barriers. They're not up on the screen, but just to let you know, some of the barriers that they mentioned were fears of being wrong, no strong system of a self-concept, not having the willingness, readiness, or ability to adapt, not valuing inclusion, and having systems that promote the status quo as barriers that stop us from getting to our vision. So as we went through that process and most recently received feedback on the draft, on what I'll call the rough strategic directions, we received feedback on those from the full administrative team, actually operational and leadership team, which includes department directors, principals, coordinators from various departments as well. They gave feedback on those rough directions, and that helped us create more refined strategic directions. Some of the feedback to those original rough directions was a desire to be more specific and more active in the wording. So for instance, an original rough draft was, quote, fanning innovative ideas, but people reported that to be too unclear in its meaning or purpose, and so a smaller group took that feedback and created these refined draft strategic directions. So I'll go ahead and read them, and then say a little bit more about them. So there are 4 of them: creating space and opportunity for each and every voice to be heard, actively leading by developing and sustaining a diverse and equitable education system, supporting and leveraging new methods and original thinking to improve student outcomes, engaging our community to ensure common understanding. So and the goal is that these directions should help guide our work and our priorities. I should be able to look at these as a communications director, somebody as an educational assistant, anybody in any role should be able to look at these and say, I can see how that helps me decide how I'm going to do my work and guide my work. And then where we're at right now is the superintendent's leadership team is kind of giving these a final review, and we'll bring them back for discussion at a future board meeting. And then lastly, Dr. Battle, I think, spoke about this pretty completely already, but we're still in the process of developing a dashboard, the idea being that we'll clearly show what outcomes we believe matter most. Again, that helps guide our work, clearly show progress to the community and to ourselves, and that it'll be organized and aligned to the strategic directions that the board eventually adopts. And then as Dr. Battle mentioned, some of the measures are identified for us or through our work plans that already exist, and then others will be set by work teams in the coming months and into the fall, again, based on the strategic directions that are adopted. And that is where we're at.
Thank you, Aaron and Dr. Battle. Any comments, questions? Dr. Alt?
Just a question, and this might be jumping ahead of ourselves, maybe in the weeds a little bit. You made a statement, Aaron, about, making sure that every staff member can look at those strategic directions and see themselves and see that as a guide for their work. How do we make sure that that happens for each and every staff member?
That's an excellent question. One of the things, and this is getting, like you said, maybe a little bit off topic or into the weeds, but it's important sort of next step. One of the things that actually my department has been talking about is how we can make sure that we're engaging staff members in understanding and being advocates and feeling connected to the mission and the vision and the brand of the school district. So as board members and staff members all received, for instance, this week, a survey link. This is going to provide us with information about what do staff members know, feel, what's their experience, what's their satisfaction level. And again, from a communication standpoint, I can look at that, or we can look at that as a team and say, where are the areas where we need to do some work and address things that are missing or things that are going well, and we can build on them and things like that. So, and one of the areas might be, how well do I feel connected to the mission and vision of the school district? How aligned is my work to that, to those strategic directions? So we'll definitely use that research to help guide us in deciding how to move forward in that kind of capacity.
And I would imagine, Dr. Battle, that would play into professional development too, those conversations.
Yes, thanks for the question, Director Alt and board members. Another example I'd like to give, but the follow-up to your last part, it is part of our professional development, our culturally proficient school systems work. And so when you think about each employee connecting to the strategic roadmap, using that protocol, they make various decisions. So irrespective of the department, if they're making a decision that will impact our families and our students, we should be asking the question, how are those who are most marginalized or not included going to be impacted by the decision I made? And so really using our CPSS protocol and then engaging staff in authentic scenarios. And so how do we use it? And so that each person really gets connected to the mission and the visions. And you can look at our core values. How do we implement our core values in our daily work?
Great, thank you.
Other comments, questions? Oh, well, thank you very much. I look forward to this because it's great timing as we're going into annual planning. So in terms of us as goal setting for ourselves as a board and other directions with the leadership team in the district, this aligns well. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have a 2022 radon report with Dan Lake, Director of Operations.
Good evening, Board Chair Miller, members of the board, and Dr. Battle. Tonight I wanted...
Chester.
It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did this change, or?
We do this.
Okay, I apologize. Board Chair
Kind
Chester.
of change on an annual basis. We kind of surprise. We mix it up.
Sometimes I'm behind on this stuff. I apologize.
No worries.
I wanted to give a report tonight on our radon testing. We did 10 buildings this year. Last year, in the spring of 2021, we had 6 elementary sites. So we finished up the second half this year. Our field consulting, field environmental consulting, what they do is they break it up based on square footage. So they divide it up into a 2-year portion. Per state statute 123B 571, the school district has tested its school buildings for the presence of radon, shall report the tests and the results to the Department of Health as well as the school board. Field environmental consulting was authorized by me, Director of Operations. And we conducted these testings at the following sites: Burnsville High School, Cedar School, Diamond Head, Eagle Ridge, Hidden Valley, Memorandum, Metcalf, Nicollet, Sioux Trail, and Sky Oaks. So the common measurement that they use is called picocuries per liter, or PCI over L. So radon is measured in that level. The action is 4.0, so anything 4.0 or above is considered an action level, and then we need to follow the appropriate response, retesting, and mitigation if recommended. So 10 sites and schools were included in this radon project. 1,251 samples were taken, and you can see the number at each site listed below. There's a link there, the radon report. It's over 200 pages, so there's a lot of information there. Sorry. So there were no radon levels above the action number of 4.0 for the following locations. That was Cedar, Diamond Head, Eagle Ridge, Memorandum-Savage, Metcalf, Nicollet, Sioux Trail, and Sky Oaks. We did have 2 sites that had 3 test results come in over the 4.0 action level, so I wanted to talk more about that tonight. At Burnsville High School, we had a classroom. It's H109. It's an open classroom. It's at the end of the H wing, the art wing, and we had a result of 7.2. And then at Hidden Valley, we had 2 storage rooms. One was identified inside room 212, and the other was in an ESL classroom, also a storage room. So one was 6.7, and the other one was 5.8. So as a result, there's follow-up measures and mitigation, specifically for Burnsville High School as a classroom. The recommended measures for us were to make changes to the HVAC schedule, which essentially means extend run times. We've done that already. I also want to mention that we did have some issues with that air handler in the building. I'm confident that that was the issue, but regardless, we're still following the measures to make sure we're as safe as possible. So retesting will be performed in the next couple of weeks, and then we're expecting that the number will drop below that, but if it doesn't, then there'll be additional mitigation strategies recommended. And then Hidden Valley were 2 storage rooms. They're not occupied spaces, so the requirements are less there, but again, if we have radon levels above that action number, we certainly want to respond. So the recommendation is to retest with 48-hour continuous radon monitors, or CRMs. So it'll run a graph every hour for 48 hours and show us if there's spikes or something to help field environmental analyze those results, and then let us know if any remediation measures are necessary. And I'll open it up for questions if anyone has any.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Director Miller. I'm giving you a lot of fun titles today.
Just, I curiosity, and then maybe just so it's on the record, first of all, and I apologize if we covered this at the beginning, the selection of schools, because that's not inclusive of all our schools, right? Or all our buildings, or is it?
It is all our buildings.
It is all, it's an entire test, okay.
Yep, and so we did 16, the 17th was River Ridge, and just because of the timing of the sale, that one we didn't have to do.
Why are we testing buildings that we don't have student bodies in? Is that just still part of the state requirement?
It is still required and recommended. On the other hand, when we get to our fire inspections, they don't recommend it there. So it varies based on the entity that's doing the testing.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any others? Questions, comments? Nope. Thank
right,
you
well,
very
thank
much for your report.
Thank you.
I'll have my the correct board chair director next time. Thank you.
Next time it might be a different one.
Just keep him guessing.
Great. Next on our agenda is a school resource officer update. We have Principals Dave Helke and Dr. Chris Belmont.
Well, good evening, Chair Chester, Superintendent Battle, and members of the Board of Education. Dr. Belmont and I are here this evening to provide you with an update on the school resource partnership. And as we go through the evening, we're going to just spend a real quick moment again on the history, which is a slide you'll probably recognize from about a year ago. And then we'll briefly go through the goals of the program as they were laid out in the most current Memorandum of Understanding. And then we'll touch on some highlights from this current school year, and then just talk about next steps in terms of measuring success and planning forward. Just going to stick to the arrows. There we go. So a little bit of historical information. School resource officers have been a part of Burnsville High School since the late 80s. As best as we can find out, it was formalized in 1992, and a second officer was added around the time of Columbine in 2000. There's some data that's listed there, just to provide you some context. These are formal response and interactions, so there's obviously a lot of informal interactions and work that the SROs do, but these are logged formal responses and interactions. And you can see the numbers going back to 2017-18, and then of the 2021-22, the 260, I do think it's important to note that about a third of those, a little over 32%, are support and aid type interactions and responses. So not enforcement, not connected to any type of investigation, but in a lot of cases, I'm supporting crisis mental health and various things like that. And the year before that, we just put hybrid online. There really wasn't, it was very negligible, the number of responses, as the SROs really weren't in the building as much, and when they were, we just didn't have as many students that were in the building that particular year. The Memorandum of Understanding outlines some clear goals of the program. Those are listed on the left of this slide, to ensure safe learning environments, to prevent and reduce potential harm, and foster positive school climate. And then on the right are just some quotes from some of the narrative in the MOU, because I think it is really important that everyone understands our partnership is really about the relationships and the adaptive work that our SROs can do for our school community. And so those quotes, I think, really emphasize that importance of the positive relationships, the positive environment, and the positive climate that our school resource officers can and do contribute to. We do feel that there's 3 roles that were listed in the Memorandum of Understanding, distinct roles of the SROs. The first was their work in fostering a positive school climate and a lot of proactive preventative work. The second was education, and that can really fall in individual type interactions with families or participating and helping out in classrooms. And then the third was your more typical law enforcement work in dealing with situations and incidents that do arise. And so Dr. Belmont is going to take you through and share some highlights of the year in all 3 of these areas.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Board. As Principal Halke mentioned, and the data suggests that very few students require police intervention. I'll just share anecdotally as someone who's walked literally hundreds of miles of Burnsville High School this year, that it's a predominantly safe place. And so a lot of that is in part because of our school resource officers working proactively, building those relationships, because an increasing amount of our students do need guidance within their pathway, mental health support, or just those positive relationships on a day-to-day basis, and just that kind of that guidance and mentoring that all the adults in the school are seeking to provide for students. So you'll see some highlights. I won't read them all to you. In the subsequent slides, it's just that visibility and presence, those connections with students and staff and families, and they do some staff recognition as well. The pathway, the pathway support is one of the more obvious places that our school resource officers are assisting with instruction and that inspiration. Right, so they have technical information to share with our students, and then they also have that guidance and that kind of mentoring as to officers that are first responders and that have been in the field for a long time. I think, is this the one where we had a video? I think we had a video queued up from Ms. Werner. So, there we go. Yeah, there it is. So just a disclaimer that if you get a little queasy at nasal infiltration, that might resonate with you during this video, but it's not too shocking. I think it's okay. And so we will see if it all works out. I know one of our board directors for sure will recognize one of the
afraid to
students.
just guide it in. Yeah, once it's guided in, my
This
nasal
is Officer Jimenez
self
assisting in the EMT
feel
class.
like push for whatever reason, just I'd never try to pull back out unless it's too long. Just little twist, little here and there, but you'll feel
Okay.
it, you know. So
That's some skill.
Nice job, Evan.
So hands-on learning, demonstration. And that is Officer Jimenez, if you know him, to just
play that at his
dive right in and help guide our students to firsthand learning. Thank you,
I
Davin.
think my eyes are watering. I have a gag reflex already.
So it has been a choppy year in some respects, especially our fall. That's not atypical of what we're hearing from other high schools as well. And so we have followed a similar journey. We've had students, we have had our officers assist us in addressing vaping. Some students have just quite frankly got into some bad habits while at home for an entire year and a half. And so helping coach and counsel and address those needs, as well as student conflicts, and just I would describe it as struggling with barriers in appropriate peer-to-peer interactions, especially on social media. So our officers have been instrumental in like partnering with us, though as Mr. Huckley showed, our school personnel is taking the lead or the primary in almost all of those instances. And then they're on our safety team that meets at least once a month. And so tactically, Javier and Neil offer very helpful perspectives on how we're working through safety and security in our building and not losing sight of those important pieces.
And Officer Jimenez was quite brave and courageous to come into the classroom and allow that demonstration. I wasn't quite as courageous. They asked me if they could practice shaving. So I was shaved over the course of 2 days by, I think, 9 students. And it's just fun to watch them build those different skills. We're going to end with just looking forward. So again, as we work with our SROs and we talk about the partnership, there's a real good common feeling and a common sense that it really is about the work to support the educational program, the work to really contribute to a positive school environment. And so we're going to take some time this summer after the school year's done to meet with them, to sit down, using a rubric that's built off of those 3 roles and the goals of the program, using some results from some surveys and focus groups that we'll be doing, and then obviously their activity log with all of their formal responses, and taking a look at, where do we see things, kind of at a level that, that we want, where do we want to grow, where do we want to enhance, and then set some goals going into the next school year for that. And so we're excited about that work, and we're excited that we have this partnership with our Burnsville Police Department. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments from board members? Director Elk?
I always appreciate hearing about the partnership with our SROs, and I know I've noticed, well, it speaks volumes to me when I'm out in the school, at an event where the SROs are present, that oftentimes if I want to say hello and thank them for their partnership, I have to wait in line because they're already in conversation with the students, which is just a really wonderful thing to see, that it's, those relationships are natural and organic, and it just says something to me. So thank you.
Anyone else?
I was going to say something similar, but
No, thank you for that. And I know maybe it wasn't by design, but the fact that we follow the core values presentation from Mr. Tinklenberg, that we want that same language and those same experiences integrated for every person that works in our building, regardless of their role.
Great, thank you very much. Next, we will have Zoe Olson present our student representative report.
Thank you and good evening. It has been an eventful month at Burnsville High School. On May 2nd, our seniors celebrated Decision Day, so many students wore attire from their future schools, and in the College and Career Center, they were able to take pictures, and there was cake, which many were very excited about. And then this past Saturday, we had prom at the Minnesota Arboretum, so juniors and seniors were really excited to be able to attend prom for the first time. And just spend time with their friends outside of school. And then in addition to these recent events, many students have recently been partaking in a lot of service-oriented activities. So the week of April 18th, the Burnsville National Honor Society held a collection drive for personal hygiene items and school supplies. So this was one of the monthly community service projects that NHS does, and around 25 NHS members worked on promoting the drive and then collecting and sorting items that were brought in by other students. It was a very successful drive with hundreds of items donated, and one class alone donated 75 items, which was really great. These items went to the Blaze Nation station for BHS students to take if they needed them. And then last week, Burnsville Strong led and planned an activity during advisory classes. So they were kind of inspired by the saying, April showers bring May flowers. So they had every student in advisory write what they were grateful for on like different colored sheets of paper. So like each grade had a different color, and then the Burnsville Strong students made like rainbows out of them on like bulletin boards around the school. So that was a cool way to kind of spread positivity, which is one of the goals of Burnsville Strong. And then last Friday, Burnsville High School had the blood drive. So during the school day, students 16 and older and staff were able to donate blood. There was a lot of interest in donating, with over 100 people signed up prior to the drive, in addition to many that wanted to just walk in and donate the day of. Over 75 units of blood ended up being collected, saving up to around 230 lives, which was really amazing. And I was personally really amazed to see how many students donated, but also just how eager everyone was to take part in this. It was just kind of a really great representation of how many students are very focused on serving others in the community. And as the school year comes to a close, students are staying busy with many other activities and events. So spring sports are just kind of wrapping up their seasons. The Theater Guild is putting on their production of Shrek with their opening night tonight. And then the Asian Student Association is hosting an AAPI show on May 27th during the school day for students to learn more about AAPI heritage and culture. And Youth Service Advisory Council is planning a spring cleanup on May 28th for students to work on beautifying the BHS campus. So all in all, students are really enjoying taking part in many of these events and activities and are excited for the end of the school year. Thank you.
Thank you, Zoe. Next, we will have a report by Superintendent Dr. Battle.
Thank you, Chair Chester, members of the board. As we get closer to the end of the school year, there are so many wonderful events, especially ones that involve transitions from one part of life to another. They are all important, but one of my favorites was this week when, for the first time since I've been superintendent in District 191, we celebrated our retirees in person at the Ames Center. There are 38 staff members who have already or will be retiring after this school year. And those 38 people have given a combined 953 years of service to 191 students, families, the community, and their colleagues. It was truly wonderful to see everyone and spend time with so many educators and other staff who have contributed so much. It was also fun to learn about their favorite memories, their plans for the future in the reception part of the program, which is available on our website. Those memories and favorite moments were almost always about the positive impact they had on students and colleagues, or the positive impact students and colleagues had on them. Hearing those stories is such a great reminder that people working in public education, no matter what their role, do make a difference in the lives of people every day. And these 38 staff members certainly did. So thank you to each of them, and congratulations on your well-earned retirements. And that ends my report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Battle. I know a couple of us were in attendance and really had a wonderful experience celebrating our retiring teachers. Next, we have board reports. If there are any reports, this is not committee report time, but if we have any reports to share. Dr. I'm calling everybody doctor today. Director Alt.
That's okay. Just a couple of things to report. Really enjoyed the retirement party, as you said, Chair Chester. And that was followed by the Avid Senior Celebration, which is always just a heartwarming event because first off, familiar faces, the students, the families, the celebration of students who, through thick and thin, just really worked very hard. And it was so apparent, the caring and support that our staff and that families gave to the students along the way, and the testimonials from the students each year. It's always great to hear the student accounts of their true accomplishment and a comparison of where they may have started versus where they find themselves now. And to know that there were 36 Avid graduates this year, all of them with plans, post-secondary, apprenticeship, or service in the armed forces. And it's a wonderful program, and it makes a difference for our students. The other thing that I did was I attended the Nicollet Cook-Off. I know there was a cook-off as well. I think it was last month at Eagle Ridge, where the U of M taught students at both middle schools. I was fortunate to attend the one at Nicollet, how to plan a menu and then prepare the meal over the course of 6 weeks. And each week, the students prepared a meal and then brought home a bag of ingredients to prepare that same meal at home. In the cook-off, judges sampled each team's meal, and Assistant Principal Blaylark, Director Dave Lake, and myself tasted well-balanced, well-planned meals. Many of them included a little heat in the entree, with a sweet side beverage as a balance. It really did a nice job of balancing each other out. And I was just so proud of our students and thankful for the partnership with the U that brought this great opportunity to 191. This ends my report.
Great, thank you. Any other reports? No, but I do second the Avid ceremony and celebration. That was a wonderful experience. Really enjoyed the opportunity that students were able to bring in a teacher that meant something to them and be able to honor that teacher and share about themselves. I thought that was such a wonderful part of the program. And then also just hearing the successes that they have as they take their next step in their journey. So very cool. Next, we go on to the business portion of our meeting. And although board action is required, it's generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. In the event a board member wishes to discuss an item, that item will be moved for consideration, and this is relating to our consent agenda. Do any board members wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume.
Second.
Oops. Second by Director Werb. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we're off to new business. First item on our agenda is to approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2022-2023 Pro-Pay Memorandum of Understanding. We have Stacy Silvine, Executive Director of Human Resources.
Good evening, Chair Chester, Dr. Battle, members of the board. Each year, we bring forward a memorandum of understanding with the Burnsville Education Association to renew our QComp, or locally as it's known as ProPay. This is money from the state for quality compensation is what it kind of used to stand for. But we use it for our continuous improvement coaches to be able to provide observations that were required to under state statute as peer colleagues, providing feedback. It helps us also with building leadership teams, as well as mentoring that we're moving into for next year, and just helping with meeting the requirements that are based by the state. Part of the funding that we receive comes from the local folks levy, as well as then there's another portion that comes from the state. And there are very few districts that have QComp money, and there's quite the waiting list to get on this type of a plan if more money is freed up by the state. So again, we didn't have a lot of changes for next year. The major items that we were looking at, including updating all of the dates. We modified our continuous improvement coaches to have protections for 3 years to return back to their assignment versus 2 years. And then finally, the last item was we set aside $10,000 to be able to assist with mentoring purposes for new teachers. So those were the changes that we did this year going into next year. With that, it is my recommendation that the Board of Education approve the proposed revisions and readopt the unchanged language in the 2022-2023 Pro-Pay Memorandum of Understanding with the Burnsville Education Association.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Werb.
Second.
Second by Director Said. Any discussion? Director Alt?
Just a question. Thank you, Stacy. How will the mentoring pilot be developed and with whose support, and what's the timeline for that?
They're looking at implementing for this fall, and it'll be working in coordination with EMENA and the CISA department. So this is using the coaches that we have in place, as well as then working with EMENA, and again, trying to move forward, learn what we need to learn, and then adjust from there. If we need to add more money from ProPay, we can. Also, by doing this, it allows us to provide some in-kind funds for our Pelsby grant for the mentoring programs as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just to refresh my memory, was that with partnership with Metro State or no? Or am I thinking of
The
another?
current mentoring, no. The one we have the Pelsby grant is helping our special education teachers.
Thank you.
Other questions, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Stacy. Next on our agenda, we have approve on a first reading basis changes to policies 605 alternative programs and 606 instructional resources. We have Amina Oftedal, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment.
Good evening, Chair Chester, Dr. Battle, members of the board. I have two policies for you to approve for the first reading. Policy 605 involves legislative or legal updates over which the board has no control. It does put in and codify in policy the requirement that students who are choosing to leave school in high school to discontinue be given a menu of their educational opportunities and the programs that may serve them either immediately or down the road. And so it's That's the new language that's listed in there. And then the other pieces are just changes so that the title of the policy matches the language of the policy. The other recommendation for, that I would ask for you to do is to approve policy 606. The MSBA did not offer any substantive changes to this policy. However, the Policy Review Committee has recommended a few changes to the policy. There were a couple of pieces in there. One, we wanted to have the language of the of diversity match the language of our Policy 105. We also wanted to make sure that the process for reviewing and challenging instructional materials was clear, and what the roles of the members of the folks that were participating in that review were, as well as the appeal process for the person who is bringing the concern. We also wanted to clarify the option for alternative instruction and make that clear as an opportunity for parents who are concerned about instructional materials. So my recommendation is to approve on the first reading these changes to policy 605, alternative programs, and 606, instructional resources.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume,
Second?
second by Director Alt. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is to approve on a first reading basis changes to policy 701, establishment and adoption of school district budget. We have Dr. Teresa Battle, Superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Chester and members of the board. Tonight, I bring forward policy 701, establishment and adoption of school district budget. This policy was reviewed by the Policy Review Committee on April 26th. And the main changes are in number 2. We added language to align to our district mission and core values, and also to add the more collaborative expectation in development of the budget. And with that, I recommend that the board adopt and approve the policy changes for 701.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the recommendation? Moved by Director Said,
Second.
second by Director Hume. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That reaches the end of our regular scheduled board meeting. We will be adjourning to a retreat. We will take a 10-minute recess. I don't think, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Or adjourn by declaration, if you will.
There we go, we're adjourned.